4, 3, 2.
All right, welcome everyone to our debate for the VISD school bond issue. I'm editor Chris Cobbler. I'm pleased today to have with us, to my left is school board president Lou Svetlik. You've been on the board how long, Lou, now?
A little over 15 years.
15 years, okay. And to my right is Emett Alvarez, a former city council member and owner of Revista. Emett, lifelong native Victorian? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're pleased to have them both here to talk about the important issue on the November 7th ballot is the $141.2 million bond issue. We've been writing a lot about it in the Advocate, so hopefully you've been following along, but this is a chance for us to explore the issues. Each person will have 2 minutes for opening remarks, and we've got 5 questions that the editorial board has put together, the Advocate editorial board, and each person will have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. And then we'll go, Kathleen is monitoring our live chat room, so if readers have any questions, we'll ask a couple of questions from readers, then do 2 minutes for closing remarks. We've flipped a coin, and Mr. Alvarez, Emett won the toss, so he's elected to defer and go second in the comments, so we'll let Lou go first with opening remarks. All right. Thank you,
I'm Lou Svetlik. It is quite my honor to serve as your representative of the Victoria ISD Board of Trustees. As a member of this community, I openly support this bond, and speaking on behalf of the many members of this community who overwhelmingly support the bond, we welcome this conversation. Any conversation about our kids and our children is also a conversation about the future of Victoria. VISD serves the needs of over 14,000 students. That's more students than any community population for many miles around Victoria. It also gives some perspective to the expanse of the many schools, buildings, and facilities that we utilize to accommodate our students and over 2,200 employees. Many of our school buildings are well over 50 years old. And it's a school board's duty to periodically evaluate our facility needs and share with our community what our needs are. We have spent the last 2 years with the assistance of a highly qualified consultant who have extensive experience in school facilities throughout the state of Texas to assist us in the assessment of VISD's needs. Following an extensive process of review and prioritization of these needs, the VISD Board of Trustees has unanimously given approval to share these needs with the community and present the November bond election on the November 7th election ballot. This important decision is being put to our community for your approval, as it should be. Hurricane Harvey thrust VISD into taking action to remediate and renovate what was damaged. Bond funds are already projected for some of these renovations in progress. As a result of the storm, which can be used to offset what we are now spending to get back in shape. Without the bond funds, there are significant expenditures that would have to come from our operating budget that funds our teacher salaries and instructional materials. VISD has been fiscally responsible with our tax dollars, and we have worked together to have high quality schools for our children. Our success is recognized across the state of Texas, and we are a shining example of other districts. We ask for your continued support and involvement in our community, and for our support as we strive for a bright future for the children and for Victoria.
All right, thank you. So, Emett, you've got 2 minutes for your opening comments.
Okay. Well, Lou used all the 2 minutes.
He went just a little over, so we'll
he didn't save me any time.
Right.
So I'll do a little filibustering first to thank the Advocate, Chris, for moderating, and the Advocate for having this on Facebook Live. And then you suggested, or you said that it would be available later for other folks to see at future times.
Right, at victoriaadvocate.com, it'll be available to watch.
Victoria Advocate. So we really thank you for hosting this and having this. I hope it's not a debate. I hope it's more of an information gathering event and discussion. It's important that when the voters go to vote for this election, this bond election, that they have all facts and all the information in front of them. Yeah, I want to go back to a few years ago. In May 2007, voters approved a $159 million bond package. That's been about 10 years ago. That was for the construction of new schools as well as renovation of existing campuses. 5 new campuses, 2 elementary. 1 middle and 2 high schools were constructed with that bond issue. The elementary schools we know were Torres and Scholmer. We know about the 2 new high schools. We know about Cade. I'm not that specific on all the renovations we did back then, but it's only been a short 9-10 years ago. I stand against this bond election right now for a number of reasons. I think, first of all, what we're hearing from the proponents is that it's an emotional issue to the voters, and they're trying to sell this bond for the kids. Well, who would be against the kids? First of all, that's a false premise to suggest, it's for the kids, it's for the future. I think it's important that I'm going to stand against the bond, but I am certainly not against the kids, and I'm certainly not against our school district. This vote needs to be a business decision by the taxpayers. We're talking about $141.2 million, an additional tax increase. So there are a number of issues that I want to talk about. Right now, it's not the time to add more debt. We have significant debt at VISD that we're still paying for, and to add additional debt right now is just going to only burden the taxpayers even more, and I think we need to be a little bit more careful about just continuing to add more taxes and more debt.
Okay. Well, you both got a little over 2 minutes, so that's fair.
Good.
But let's go with where you're going actually leads into Emmett, and you get to go we'll alternate and take the question first. Is the question editorial board had is this the right time for a bond issue, and why or why not? So Emmett, if you can elaborate on that.
Well, I think that we need to wait. I think it's not the right time. We're still 21 years out of paying the 2007 debt. If you look at the 2016 consolidated financial audit of the school district, and that's the latest one that's available, we are showing on the books right now that we still owe, from the 2007 bond, over $237 million. That's in principal and interest. So we have retired from the 159 million or so. We've retired very little of that debt in less than 10 years. So we have substantial debt still going forward on our previous bond issue. We're barely 9-10 years into that 30-year bond. One only needs to go to the consolidated financial report, annual financial report of 2016 to find this information. It's on page 41 that shows the debt and how much we still owe, which is about $237 million. Now, I know we're finishing up the 2017 year, going into the 2017-2018 annual budget. So we've reduced that debt by about $12 million in this past year. But I'm strictly looking at the 2016 financial audited report. We're not going to see the 2017 financial audited report until probably January of next year. So I can't use that as a reference, but anyone is welcome, and you can go and find that or ask your school district. I'm referencing specifically the page 41 of what we call CAFR, the Consolidated Annual Financial Report for VISD, and that shows significant debt still on the books to the tune of about $237 million. That's principal and interest, and when you look at the principal alone, it's still substantial. It's over 140-something million dollars. And remember, we borrowed 159 million. So principal, we paid very little in less than 9 years.
All right. Same question for you, Lou. Is this the right time for a bond issue, and why or why not?
It's overwhelmingly the right time. Some of the facts that or the statements that Mr. Alvarez made need to be checked out. For sure is that we have reduced the bond debt tax rate by approximately $25 million in just the last few years. Our VISD bond debt tax rate has been reduced by 5.6 cents since 2012. This conversation needs more than just one minute to explain. Okay, folks, we really want to encourage this conversation. We reduced this bond debt rate by 5.6 cents since 2012 as a result of previous debt being refinanced by VISD in the last few years, as well as resulting from the good local economy, generating additional revenues, which has allowed the reduction of the tax rate. We have also refinanced the bond debt, as I said. The impact of the tax rate for the 2017 bond of $141.2 million is 7.4 cents, only 1.8 cents above the 2012 tax rate. As any family that does planning of their personal business, to be without debt is probably not a reality until someone's near retirement or nearing the end of life. VISD is very much alive, and we have a very good handle on where our debt is, and we see this as a significant benefit to our not only our students but our community for years to come. Keep in mind that because of the currently low, extremely low interest rates, we can realize a significant value in offering the bond at this time to your community. Construction costs are as low as they will be as well. The 2007 bond of $159 million was an impact of 20 cents to the tax rate. The proposed bond of a 141.2 is only an impact of 7.4 cents, a huge difference made up by the change in interest rates. We have more information we want to share with everyone about the low cost or impact to their tax rate, which is very minimal. We're talking about 20 cents a day, 30 cents a day.
Next question follows up on that, so we're at the time, but so we'll keep going there.
So I'll get a minute?
Well, we'll give you, he went over about 15 seconds, so yeah, we'll do more seconds. But the next question does follow up with this important conversation. It is an important topic to talk about, and that is where the debt capacity. VISD right now is 50% below its debt capacity, and the bond issue would add 7.4 cents to our debt. And if it passes, it would add $6.23 a month for every 100,000 for property. So those are the facts. So, but the question is, should we be concerned about adding to this debt? Is the 50% below its debt capacity? Is that a good level to be at? What should we be concerned? So I guess we go with Lou. You're up first.
I'll be happy to answer that. As a school district, we're in very good position in regard to our debt. We can compare ourselves to any other school district our size or around our community in what not only debt but comparable tax rates that still make us appealing for job growth and potential homeowners for Victoria. VISD has been fiscally responsible with our tax dollars, and we have worked together very hard to have quality schools for our children. Our success is recognized across the state of Texas, and we are a shining example of other districts. We ask for continued support and involvement in our community, and we ask for each of your support as we strive to ensure a bright future for our children and Victoria. As mentioned, for a $100,000 home, the monthly impact is $6.25, and you extrapolate that to daily is 21 cents a day. Not only is there need, which I'll be happy to expand on at length of the needs for this bond. It is very much of value at this time. As I mentioned, interest rates will never be lower, and construction costs will never be lower as well. The overall VISD tax rate in 2012 was $1.32. The effect of the proposed tax rate, which includes the 2017 bond, is $1.34. It's 1.8 cents above the 2012 rate. We see it as very much of value, and at $1.34 we are near the bottom of comparable size school districts across Texas, and also the percentile of local school districts as well. Thank you.
All right. So, Emma, the same question: should we be concerned about adding debt, or more of that conversation we're already having?
Absolutely. And again, I can't emphasize enough. If you go to the 2016 audited financial statements of the school district, on page 41, it clearly tells you that we owe in principal $149,660,000, and we owe in interest $88 million, for a total of $237,765. Right now, they paid off about $12 million this past year. Maybe take $12 million off of that. But again, you're looking still at a substantial amount of debt that we're carrying on the books that VISD is carrying. Now let's talk about that 7.4 cent rate. I have some issues with it because, quite frankly, when you look at your proposal, your bond proposal that was being presented, your numbers are off. It's not 7.4 cents, it's 7.47 cents. You're rounding down instead of rounding up. Because if you do the math on how much it's going to cost a day, or a month, or a year for a $100,000 property owner, it's more reflective of a 7.4 cent increase. Furthermore, when you look at the tax rate that you propose in the plan, the VISD bond plan, when you take the current rate with the one that's being proposed with this increase, it's 7.47 cent increase. Now, recently, your finance director stated for every penny that the school district collects is worth about $570,000. So if you're going to add 7.4 cents, you're going to roughly collect the multiplication, 7 pennies, almost 7.5 pennies, times the 570,000 you'll collect per penny, comes out to about 4,218,000. Your debt service on this new bond will probably be approximately $8 million. I'd like to know where the school district plans to find the other $4 million to pay for the debt service of this new bond.
Okay, well, shift gears a minute with a different topic, obviously the same subject, but the question is, why should we replace Memorial Stadium and do the other work on athletic facilities outlined in the bond proposal? And this question relates to some of the concerns that's been expressed about spending more on instruction rather than on athletics. So let me see, that would be you
My
to
turn?
start first, Emmet, right? Yeah. So.
Well, I think the school district makes a very good argument that with new facilities, we will be able to bring down our maintenance and operation costs. Therefore, freeing up about $2 million in the future to give more raises for instructional. Because I think that's where where the key is the teachers in any educational and learning environment. You know, I went to University of Texas. My God, some of those buildings were pretty doggone old. And there have been, of course, renovations there throughout the years many times. But a lot of the buildings I went to were more than 50 years old, and we still did a lot of learning on that campus. So again, age, I think, in some cases is misleading. Some of these campuses, while they may have existed for over 50, 60 years, there are new facilities on those campuses. So I think you're using the age of the campus, not necessarily the age of the infrastructure. Getting back to the
athletic complex?
Athletic complex.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a good argument. Again, the school district claims that we'll be able to drive economic expansion, economic activity because of more athletic competition at these facilities. My question again is, where are the numbers? Where is the economic impact analysis that's going to reflect that economic driver of bringing more people to town for athletic competition? Do we need new facilities? Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with that. Do we need to wait a little while? I think we do, until we pay some of this bond debt that we already have. And one really needs to seriously ask the school district, show us the pro forma on your debt service for the new debt, the new $141 million, coupled with the debt service that you have now, which is in excess of $12 million last budget year. So again, coupled with the new debt, what is that going to cost the taxpayers? My assumption puts it at about $19 million in new debt service.
All right, we'll go. I'll repeat the question for you, Lou. Why should we replace Memorial Stadium and do the other work on athletic facilities outlined in the bond proposal?
First of all, with all due respect to Mr. Alvarez, he encouraged that his figures be fact-checked, and I insist that we do that, because I think he's off significantly in many of them, and that can be straightened out very easily. The other thing I'd like to say is residents 65 or older with a homestead exemption are completely unaffected by this bond. We encourage everyone that supports our children and the vision for our community to vote for it, but and as those over 65 can. Our proposal for the multi-activity complex is a need that represents the community's commitment to all aspects of developing our children, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Athletic teams, bands, and many other essential programs serve to teach and engage our children in education and development that makes us who we are as Americans. Recognizing that our students are educated in many ways outside the classroom. If you've spent any time looking at the facilities that we have, you also see that it's time that we have our own baseball stadium and softball stadium. It is time we replace the aging and outdated Memorial Stadium and upgrade to having our own competition track, with all of these facilities having energy efficient lighting, high quality playing fields, quality viewing for all our disabled, additional seating and lighted parking areas, and appealing and functional restrooms and concession facilities. It is time Victoria again be the hub for band competitions and playoff athletic events that not only bring additional revenues to VISD, but draw outside community spectators to an appealing facility who dine in our restaurants and spend nights in our hotels. We must keep looking forward, and there's partnerships with UHV that can help fund some of this. Having quality schools and facilities is a display of our community pride and shows potential homeowners and businesses that consider moving to Victoria that we value our children's education, we support a strong community, and the long-term strength and viability of Victoria.
All right, new question, and I think it's Louis get to start this time. Why shouldn't we focus more on teacher salaries and raises instead of on buildings?
Well, the important thing about the bond is that the bond funds themselves cannot be used for increases to salaries or educational supplies. They must be used for what is being identified. But the key piece of this is that as we take away from our operations budget those expenses that are a huge drain with operating, managing, and repairing and renovating older buildings from our operating budget, and use those bond funds to offset those, those bond funds will take care of those renovations and those improvements. Our operating budget can now be used to provide those educational materials and to help compensate our valued employees and keep attracting our valued employees. It's all about the strength of VISD having the leadership that we have in Victoria and being a shining star district across the state of Texas. It all goes hand in hand of supporting a strong school district and moving forward with community pride and us joining together for our children and investing in our community.
All right. So, Emmet, I'll repeat the question. Why shouldn't we focus more on teacher salaries and raises instead of on buildings?
Well, we should. We should be looking at teacher salaries every year and staying competitive. The argument that the school district makes is that by the new renovations and new facility replacement of old facilities, will drive our maintenance and operation costs down by about $2 million. Therefore, having more room for instructional, be it raises or materials or instruction. What happens when you run out of that $2 million? Your maintenance and operation may even go up over time because of the new facilities. You still have to have the same people working at those facilities. You still have the same custodial staff. Sometimes new is not always better. Many times when we renovate or buy new anything, it seems to break down quicker, wear out faster. So some of those assumptions, I beg to differ, that will actually have that significant savings to transfer over to instructional. So again, please show us the numbers, not just estimates. The bringing of tourism or bringing of spectators, show us some projections of what that looks like. Give us an analysis. Just making that speculation that we're going to bring in a lot more fans and other teams to play here, prove it and show me what the numbers look like.
Excuse me. I think I have about 20 seconds.
Well, we're not doing rebuttals, so we'll get closing remarks. So we'll go back to that. We'll get one more question before we go to reader questions. One more editorial board question, and then we'll take a couple of reader questions if we've got them.
Sure.
And then we'll have closing remarks. And the final editorial board question is, what is the right amount for the bond proposal versus, oh sorry, I said that wrong. Why is this the right amount, 141.2 million? Why is that the right amount versus any other amount that we might ask of voters? So I think Emmett, you get to go first on that one.
Well, that's a school board driven decision. They did an analysis that stated there was over 200. I forget exactly the amount, 200 and something million. And they prioritized 141 million. My issue with that, because it was a school board driven decision, it didn't involve the public. There should have been community meetings. There should have been meetings at the schools. There should have been meetings at Memorial Stadium. And any of the other facilities they're planning to replace or remodel, and ask for input before coming up with that number. It's now being sold as, we're the school board, we had 2 years of planning, we hired consultants, and so forth and so on. But as far as the public was concerned, the taxpayer, we're just being presented with the bill. This is what we think we need, 141.2 million. This is the tax rate more or less, which I think is still ambiguous as to how you're going to pay for that 141.2 million. And more importantly, I think it's just a board-driven decision and not a community-driven decision, where there should have been many meetings, and over the course of the last 2 years, whether it was the Advocate or any of the other local media, announcing that the school board taking the initiative to welcome the community to meetings. They claim that they had these meetings all in public. Well, yes, they probably posted an agenda. They had to. And they had their meetings and they had their discussions. Very little was written about it. Very little was said about it. And only until recently, when this was announced a couple of months ago, here it is. 141.2 million. These are our priorities, and this is what we think is best. It would have been a lot easier, and there would have been a lot more buy-in over the last 2 years had the public, especially the taxpayers, have been involved in the process.
All right, so same question, Lou. Why is 141.2 million, why is that the right amount for the bond proposal versus any other amount that we might ask?
Well, first and foremost, as I stated earlier, this has been a long process, and there's been several meetings, and the community's been invited, and some members of the community have been there, as well as the Advocate. Or the Revista, where the Revista was, I can't tell you, and whether they were not aware of it or wasn't willing to get involved. But one thing for sure is that this is about the community. We are reaching out to the community to support this. And we as a school board and Dr. Jacklich and all the administrative staff, we have showed our openness and we have showed our willingness to share all of this, because its success is dependent upon you recognizing the facts and understanding them with us. This is a shared effort. Some of our biggest supporters, or the biggest group of supporters, are our valued teachers. I encourage anyone in this community to go to speak to any one of our teachers. They know how hard we work. They know how hard our great superintendent, Dr. Robert Jacklich, is working to turn over every rock and find every penny that we can help compensate our employees. And this bond is a significant way to do that moving forward. It is an issue of looking at the needs, and again, we need to talk about these needs more, because we have barely covered them. And we are very ready to offer the rebuttal to Mr. Alvarez on some of the figures that he's pointed out, and I hope that the Advocate gets involved in that, because some of them are completely inaccurate. In all due respect with Mr. Alvarez, he and I have known each other a long time, and as I told him here before this meeting, I thought that he would support this bond with the values that we share. I think he's trying to make sure we do our job, and we are happy to do it. Thank you.
And I would add to that, before we go to the reader questions, is that we will, with this video that we post online, have links to our news coverage and to the bond proposal information, so that readers can. I do encourage you to go on and read a lot more about it. And we will, of course, have a news story about this discussion in the paper tomorrow, too. So there's a lot more reading that you can do. But we got time for a couple of reader questions. The first one is, can VISD better route traffic after school hours? And I think the question is asking about a lot of the discussion, especially around east and west, about traffic coming and going and some of the congestion that happens there. So let's see, who we start with? Is that you this time, Emmett? Do you start?
I'm happy to.
All right, go ahead.
Well, having to experience the traffic at Cade West High School now in the afternoons, because I don't drop my stepson in the mornings. I do pick him up after school. That traffic over there is just hideous, and I can appreciate all the concerns that the parents have at that school. I've also been at East in the morning, no, in the afternoon, and seen the lines that back up going to East. So we definitely have situations and issues at both high schools. I've had complaints of other schools in the past too, whether it was Hopkins, some of the other schools. We have issues with traffic all around the school district. My understanding, there may be a little bit of money there to try to help on the East and West campuses. It begs the question, though, why wasn't this thought of back in 2007? Why wasn't this part of that whole development of those two campuses, that anybody would think that you could have a one-way in and one-way out at West Cade? Doesn't make sense now. It shouldn't have made sense back then, and it was just poor planning. East, same thing. When you've got, you know in the future you're building a loop right past in front of East. Why planning wasn't more emphasized during that process begs a lot of questions, concerns that I hope that in the future, if this bond is passed, that the planning that goes into it is a little bit better detailed than the proposal that's being handed out and presented by the school district. Again, there's some inaccuracies as to the tax rate, and they're not telling us what really the debt service is going to be on the new debt, including the old debt. So I would challenge the school district, the school board, our president on the school board to come up with better numbers. Thank you.
We're at time. So the same question is, can VISD better route traffic after school hours? And I guess we're focused a lot around East and West.
The answer is absolutely yes. The problem is that some of these improvements take capital funds, which comes from the bond. And we're happy to share the details of those. The issues are obvious, and believe me, the conversation has been going on for quite some time on the right way to do things. Anyone can sit in armchair quarterback what happened 10 years ago. Everyone knows how this community has grown and has succeeded in economic development and business since that time. The traffic out near the west side of town towards Cuero has likely doubled, especially with trucks and other type of equipment. So we've been making the best of that, and there was also community involvement of the city, and that we're partners in that talked about the future of that area and future expansion of Victoria. That has not yet happened yet, but we are looking forward to that. There are other schools other than East and West High School that we have some issues to deal with. Vickers, for one, we have a plan in place that's going to solve the congestion at Vickers that everyone is going to just be glad to see. And there are other campuses as well that have had to adapt and change and adjust to the increase of enrollment and the growth of Victoria, where some of these parking facilities and these driveways are not adequate anymore. That's part of the bond funds as well. We're addressing many things, and I'll be more than happy to discuss the details of this bond, as well as VISD. As I mentioned, you can go to our website. All the facts and figures are there. There's nothing here that anyone's trying to hide. It's in our benefit to share all the facts with the community and reach out to you and shake hands. And again, as we did in 2007, let's look at what's good for our kids and keep moving forward and invest in our future.
All right, so our final reader question before we go to closing remarks, and want to say very much everybody's participation in this, and especially Emmett and Lou. The final reader question is, how does Hurricane Harvey impact the bond need? So obviously we all know we've endured a lot through Hurricane Harvey, and Lou, your question to start with is, how does that affect what we're doing now?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. No one could predict Hurricane Harvey. It took us by surprise. This community hadn't experienced anything like that in quite some time. And it will be quite some time before we're back to where we were. People are still struggling, but Victoria is a strong community. And it is important that we continue to work together to help our friends and our neighbors. There are pieces of the bond that, if approved, can help the positive impact post-Hurricane Harvey. First of all, the process of securing loans for the bond, once the bond is approved, takes place starting January 2018. This means that tax rates will be adjusted in 2018 for the payment of taxes in 2019, not next year in 2018. So there is some time before the new tax rate will be realized, and we understand that we need to move forward, and we need to look at what it takes to have a strong community, and that's where we're at this time. Hurricane Harvey thrust VISD into taking action to remediate and renovate what was damaged. We're putting things back, but not the way they were. Many of these items were on the list of the projects already. We're having to spend our money from our operations budget, and we're realizing some insurance and some FEMA money, but there will still be additional costs that we have to pull out of our pocket that will impact how we fund our teacher salaries and our educational materials. Without the bond funds, there's significant expenditures that would have to come from the operating budget to fund these repairs. Again, we've listened to our community. This is a community effort. We've listened to our teachers and our valuable employees. We feel like they support this overwhelmingly, and we appreciate them and want to do what's best for our children and our community.
All right, so the same final question for you, Emmett. How does Hurricane Harvey impact the bond need?
Well, we certainly have to get these schools back up and running, and I think they've done a tremendous job of that. We lost a number of days. The students weren't able to go to school. I wonder if that's going to affect our average daily attendance records, therefore even receiving less money from the state based on those lost days. We're going to make up for those days, who knows. I think the Harvey hurricane issue brought a lot of things out in the open. The homelessness, the loss of homes, and the need for shelter. And I think y'all are doing a great job, Chris, identifying that issue. But also keep in mind that people will be repairing their homes, those that can afford it, those that have insurance. Who knows, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per home, let's say. So in the future, guess what? Those improvements, those values are going to be added to your appraisal value, and therefore your appraisal values will be going up more than likely. Same thing with the seniors. The school district is quick to point out that the senior citizens 65 and over homestead exemption freezes their taxes. Oh yes, it does freeze your taxes, but it doesn't freeze your appraisal value. So if you're going to be making improvements because of Harvey to your roof and to your buildings and your house in particular, and that shows up because you've gone and pulled a permit to do those improvements, because you hired a contractor to do those improvements, the appraisal district is going to be very well aware of that. And those improvements are going to be coming on your appraisal value in the near future. So you couple the tax rate of the 7.4 cents, which I still think is not enough to cover the new debt, and you also take into account the city has raised their taxes, the college district has raised their taxes. In the next few years, we're going to see a substantial tax increase. It's coming. This election needs to be held off, and for a better time. Granted, the interest rates might be good, and construction costs, materials are good, but right now it's not the time. And Harvey only made this situation worse.
Okay, well, we'll go to closing arguments, closing comments now?
I'm sorry, I didn't get to answer that.
Oh, did you not? I thought you did ask the Harvey question. Am I?
Okay,
Yeah,
that
you
was a
did.
Harvey
That
question.
was a Harvey question. Yes, you did. Sorry. But anyway, we appreciate both Lou and Emmett coming to speak and discuss. It's a very important issue, and want to stress to everybody that you should get out and vote on November 7th. Early voting, I believe, starts October 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, and encourage you all to get informed and come out and vote. That's the most important thing. That's why we do this discussion, why we do all the coverage that we do, is to try to educate you, the voters, and get you involved. So now we'll go to closing comments, and Emmett, you get to start with
Okay,
closing.
well, thank you. And, I formulated my comments today. I put them down on paper. I provided Lou with a copy, and Chris, and others here at the Advocate to fact check it. This is based on the limited knowledge and information, mostly information that's out there, but I did verify the sources. I've also attributed the sources to help me come up with these numbers. Now, they may be off a little bit, plus or minus, but I challenge the school board, the school district, and anyone else who's making this decision to verify your numbers. First of all, it's very clear. This bond election is being sold as an emotional vote to the voters. This vote needs to be a business decision by the taxpayers. Now is not the time to add more debt. VISD will double its debt with this 2017 bond election. In 2007, VISD passed a $159 million bond, an investment in our kids then. And we are still paying for it and will continue to pay for it till 2038. We need to reduce our current debt. Our principal and interest right now is over $237 million. Why has VISD not produced a new pro forma debt service schedule that includes the new debt for the voters to see? In other words, show us what our debt is, our principal and interest, and our payments from between now and 2038, and then show us the new debt and the pro forma or the schedule of our principal and interest and payments on the new debt out to 2048. And let's see what that really adds up to and what the taxpayers really are going to be facing in the future with this additional debt. I project that that the debt service per year will be approximately $19 million. That's current on average. We're paying about $11 million, and then with this new debt, we'll be over $8 million. The final, and we didn't get to this point, but I will again subject the school district to better explain how do you capitalize short-term assets with long-term debt. I've yet to get a straight answer. When you buy carpet and some of these equipment and assets that are clearly 15 years or less as far as how long they're going to last, you're going to be paying for those for the next 30 years. And I sure would like to know how you formulate long-term debt to pay for short-term assets. Thank you.
All right. Well, Lou, I'll let you do closing comments,
Sure.
and Emmett went a little over 2 minutes, so you can have
Okay,
that luxury
thank
if you like to.
With all due respect to Mr. Alvarez, some of his figures are just completely inaccurate. I hate to say that, but he is dealing with limited information. With regard to the school days lost to Harvey, if he had been at the last school board meeting, which know that the TEA gave Victoria and other communities that suffered Harvey an exemption for the days lost. So we got credit for about 10 days, and we will lose no funding. So Mr. Alvarez should know that. He's in the newspaper business. It's his business to know that. And that's just one example. We've exemplified how the tax rate and it would be impacted, and it is very affordable. If we look at the needs of our school district, the interest rates will never be lower. The construction costs will only go up each year. All of the 30 projects in the bond will go for competitive bid by quality construction firms. Many of those right here in Victoria. Many of our own Victoria businesses will be utilized as successful bidders to complete these projects. This means that many jobs from our own citizens and for the economic benefit of many individuals here in Victoria will be employed and spending their income for housing, restaurants, and our businesses here in Victoria. This was very evident during the construction of the new schools in 2007, where that bond project was completed on schedule and in budget. I'd like to just close to analogize VISD as a major airline and the importance of transporting and taking care of our students in a similar environment where it's our job to make sure that we give the best that we have available to our children and that we get them safely where they need to go. As a school district, you're under the microscope, just like many in aviation are. With anything that happens, it's magnified 200, 1,000 fold. And it's that important. It's that important, and we ask for your understanding. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both again. Thank everybody in the audience too for tuning in. We will have this at victoriaadvocate.com, so if you weren't able to watch it live, it will be available there. We will add links to the information, a lot of information thrown around, so encourage everybody to do their reading on this issue. And education reporter Gabriela Canales will be fact-checking and adding to the story that will be in tomorrow's Advocate, so I encourage you to pick that up as well. And most of all, encourage you to vote. Early voting is October 23rd.
Absolutely.
Voting day is November 7th. Want to get you to get out and be involved in the future of our community. So again, I'm editor Chris Cobbler. With me, Emett Alvarez, Lou Svetlik. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Victoria Advocate.
Thank you.